Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan for an Inside the Birds podcast that is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. We said it last podcast prematurely. We can say it now. Happy New Year, new NFL year to all of you who observe and celebrate. Certainly, Adam and I do. It has been quite the start to the league year for the Philadelphia Eagles. Adam, I've heard the term dream team thrown out a little bit.
Oh,
Some people are
no,
getting dream team vibes. I wouldn't quite make that comparison,
no.
but we're also just a few days into it, so we don't know what's going
Yeah,
to happen next. But
yeah.
certainly a lot of players, a high volume of players signed by the Eagles, and then certainly several others who were extended. We will talk about that. We will get into the contracts, and then we'll sort of just, say, well, what might be next and get out of here because as soon as we're done, who knows? Like five other things might
uh,
happen. I do want to address one thing though, and get
okay,
your insight onto it too. A lot of people wondered why, with the huge Saquon Barkley signing, right? Why did we not do an immediate podcast, an emergency pod?
oh,
And I feel like the whole point of what we do here is to try to get as much inside info and intel and work our sources. If we did something 10 minutes after it happened just to give our opinion,
yeah,
oh, this is a great sign. Oh, it's a terrible.
yeah.
There's no value
Not
to
what we
that.
do. It's not
Yeah,
what we do.
that's not what we do. We need a day or two to process, to figure everything out, see how everything fits in, make phone calls, work the call, and it's just better for everybody that we don't act like everybody else and just give you our immediate hot take
Yeah.
reaction, and do it the way we do it.
It's funny you say that because my feeling when it happened with Barkley, we knew that they were on him, but we just, the thing is when we did our show over the weekend, we just didn't know if they would go we didn't know where the money was going to go. We didn't know it was
Right.
going to be that high. In fact, two teams that told me if Barkley didn't get what he wanted, they were probably going to call the agent, Ed Berry, I think his name is, from
Hmm.
CAA,
Hmm.
get involved, on the back end because when it's kind of like when, ironically, when in a way, when Gore backed out, of his deal, he didn't sign anything. He just wanted to sign with the Eagles and decided against it. All of a sudden, DeMarco Murray's agents, Bill Johnson and Pat Dye, then I think,
Hmm.
called the Eagles, called Ed Manowitz, like, "Hey, do you have a backup plan?" They became the backup plan. So I
Right.
was just kind of laughing, talking to a couple of people. Oh yeah, if he was going to get maybe 6 million, if he couldn't even get 7 million a year, we would have called. But you don't know about free agency as you hear as we talk about everything that's happened with the Eagles so far. You just never know where the money's going to go. Like the craziness of the Byron Jones sweepstakes in 2019, which was like ridiculous,
Right.
and just chasing money as team like the craziness. I could tell you from talking to people involved, the Calvin Ridley deal that surprisingly went to Tennessee. They didn't think they were getting him earlier in the week. And the Patriots ran it. The Patriots are trying to get receivers.
Hmm.
And Jacksonville gets jilted at the altar. You just never know. And who Tennessee typically does not spend a lot of money. They went to the wall. I mean, that you can't predict this stuff.
Right. That we always say there's always that surprise team that just,
Mhm.
yeah. So that's why we try not to
Yeah.
make anything definitive when we do our previews. We knew there was interest, but who knew that Howie was going to just break the bank for a running back in a way that he hasn't done in
Hmm.
quite a while. And your story really sets up this podcast well because I'm not sure you made anybody who was already skeptical about the Saquon Barkley signing feeling any better when you bring up the DeMarco Murray signing. That's really the
Oh,
last time the Eagles
sorry.
splurged big on a free agent running back, and that did not work well. That backfired in the face of the organization. That also wasn't Howie Roseman calling the shots. That was his year of being on the other side of the building. So when some people say it's not like the Eagles have never done this before, or Howie's never done this before, and they bring up the DeMarco Murray situation, I say that's not really Howie. So this is kind of new terrain for Howie. And we'll talk a little bit more. He has paid running backs before, but in a different way. And we'll talk about that in a minute. I just wanted us to at least set the table here by explaining, we do 2 podcasts a week. We do other stuff too. And if you want to get other stuff from us, we had a great, not a good, and great Ask ITB live stream with our Patreon members on Wednesday night. There had to have been at least 20 in the room, and they get better and better. We've formed such a great bond with our our members because they keep coming back. It's the same. It's awesome. It's actually new people come in,
Yeah.
and then we make more friends. So it's been a wonderful experience for us to do this thing. So you're really missing out if you're not a member. It's patreon.com/inside the birds, and we do these Ask ITB live streams every other Wednesday now. At least 2 a month, which we've increased since we first started this thing because of the participation and the enjoyment that both we and our members get out of it. So, and
We
again,
got
we'll drop some intel on it too.
Yeah, just want to say hello to CJ and Michael who joined us lately. I think one of them, I think CJ might have been there
Mm-hmm.
to view what we were talking about. It was an hour and 20-minute monster chat. It was, in fact, not only was it more than 20 people, people would drop out and come back, and people like we had not seen before. So it's actually very cool. People just signed up this week. So
Right.
Geoff said patreon.com/inside the birds. And we're doing live streams all year, every 2 weeks, every other week. And the weeks that we don't do live streams, doing a half an hour chat on Discord. Oh, by the way, I was on Discord for 2 days. I don't know how many hours. People are like, I didn't plan it. I just decided to do it
Yeah.
because I was off for tennis for 4 days. Like I was on the phone and texting people for information on free agency, and I was like, man, I got all this cool Eagle stuff. I'm not going to put it out in X. I'm just going to give it to you guys. We're going to have fun with it. It's like, this sounds like this is going to happen, or they're on this. Boom, it happened. Not
That's
all of it
amazing.
did, but it was a lot of it. As the people were talking, a lot of stuff we talked about last Monday. A lot of it was in. They were in on a bunch of stuff. We'll talk about the stuff they didn't get, the stuff they got. We do this every year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just free agency that Howie said Howie's going to be aggressive, but we try to caution people when we did our Monday show, be careful because they only control so much. Like Xavier McKinney, they wanted him, they were in big. It wasn't quite the Byron Jones chase, but it wasn't too far away. They wanted him.
Yeah.
And he went to Green Bay, got a great deal, 16.75 a year. And we'll go into the other guy that they chased, who they didn't get, but it wasn't a big deal. They still got someone who is an old friend. We'll talk about that. And as you said, it's been fascinating. This has been Howie at his best. We're going to devote a show once things calm down in a couple weeks. I started researching this because I was just curious. It was on my mind how good he is at free agency. I know he's one of the best. Every GM misses at free agency. It's impossible to get him right. Last year was not good for Howie, but when he goes in on the big names, more often than not, he's right. And it's interesting if you go back to when he's had personnel control, there are certain things that you see when he misses and when he gets it right, what he gets right. Now, with Barkley, which we're going to talk about soon, I'm interested to see what they were, we don't have access to Howie's mind, but we do know that they were all in on Barkley in a major way, and they blew the other teams away, by the way. They were, wow, they were surprised.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel pretty good from a reporting standpoint about something I want to bring up because people brought up on the live stream. We've said over the last few years with the way the combines change and the discussions change and the legal tampering period, it's hard to come back and be like, we know the Eagles will go, this every once in a while, like the Byron Jones that you had that you knew they were going to offer him big and he just didn't take it. It's hard to just know. We know positions, we know names that they check into, but no one's coming back saying this team is signing that guy, this team's signing that. Just doesn't not happening. But we did report before it is I'm going to read you the headline of one of our last week's podcasts, headlining or going into free agency. Philadelphia Eagles plan to be aggressive and get younger for 2024. So we've been saying for quite a while, Howie Roseman was going to have an aggressive free agent approach. We are not even a couple of days through it here, and he signed several players. Now, they're not all aggressive moves. Some of them are depth moves, but nonetheless, he has aggressively, you pay that much money for a running back. And then obviously to bring back CJ Gardner-Johnson and Bryce Huff in a big $50 million deal, that it's been an aggressive approach.
Yeah.
And I believe you and I feel the same way about this, that it's far from over. But you remember the offseason, especially for Howie, extends until late August. So some of his best moves have come in May, June, July, and then right at the end of training camp in August. So
in fact, 2017 is when they got Blunt. I'll look it up. Was it in May?
I think it was May. It might have been like the last week of May even. It was really late. Yeah.
I mean, we could argue whether this is a little bit of a stretch, but I'm just going to say it. Do they win the Super Bowl without Blunt? Did they
No,
get there at
no,
least?
no, 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 no.
He
They
was
don't.
pretty good, but he was
He
pretty
was,
good.
yeah, yeah.
He was he had a major impact. I know talking to DiFilippo about him, John said like he didn't know Blunt, he'd never worked with him before, and he goes, he was so just a great leader. You have perceptions of players sometimes when you don't know them, and he said became one of his favorite, probably his top three Eagle guys he worked with. Super accountable. Remember Blunt had all the maturity issues at Oregon with Chip,
Right.
and Steelers cut him, and then he got himself together. He turned out to be such a great signing. Those glue guy, he became a glue guy for that 17. That's probably the way I meant to say it. So as we transition here, and I asked you this question, I'm going to ask you again. Now, I know that you're right. That we're very early in free agency. Free agency goes for weeks and months. But is this a transition team or is this a team going for something?
Oh, how can we? I mean, how could you say anything other than going for something? I mean,
Okay.
again, you don't sign a running back who's not even a young. I mean, he's still young, but he's not, a year or two in.
Back nine though. Back
Yeah, he's
nine.
on the. He's got probably fewer days ahead of him than he's already played. I think we can all acknowledge that. If you don't expect to be going for it, I mean, you brought back
Okay.
CJ Gardner-Johnson the last time you made the Super Bowl. He was on your team, and again, I still think there are moves that are going to be made here within the next days, weeks, and months that is going to continue to demonstrate what we're saying, which is that this is not a rebuild, or it's going for it and trying to be a Super Bowl team again next year.
Okay. I was
Definitely
just
believe that.
curious because I did not realize Gardner-Johnson was as young as he is. He turns just 27 in December. I know he's been hurt. He's been on IR, I think 3 times, once with the Saints, and then the last 2 years with the Eagles and then the Lions with significant injuries, but give him credit for coming back from the pectoral muscle way earlier than they expected. But yeah, I was just curious
Well, I
because
mean,
I'm trying
just
to
real
figure that out.
quick, this is not just something that you and I are speculating on. We've said we've been told by people who know the team, who have some ties to the team, that
Yeah.
Howie was in this mode of, all right, I know what I got to do. I'm going to go do it. That's the way it's been painted to us, that
Which
he's
means, so yeah,
in an
I
aggressive
agree. I heard
mindset.
that. In fact, yeah, I heard his interviews at the combine. Heard he did a couple media interviews. Mike Florio did his, which it's always a good one with Mike, and he did another one. And clearly he was up to something. Like he had some kind of strategy, as you're talking about. But who knew? Yeah, we knew he was going to be aggressive. That was the one thing, the one real takeaway, which we felt confident in. He was going to try to be aggressive. He sure as hell did, and he's achieved it to a certain degree with success. We'll
Yeah.
see how the players do, but I'm just trying to figure out what this team is because as we speak here, extremely early Thursday morning, they still have a lot of holes on
Yep.
defense. As you said to me, and I thought it was an awesome way you phrased it, folks. Geoff and I talk almost every day, and it goes, and you said, "I'm not so sure. Is this team better than they were last year?"
I said I think that's a question we're going to have to
Yeah,
at some point answer, right? Because there's been a lot of
on
moves made,
paper.
and you can talk about areas they have improved. You can also talk about with expectations of maybe losing some pass rushers, and some other areas of the holes you just mentioned. You may have gotten better in certain areas, but on the whole, as we sit here right now and record this, I don't know that you say the Eagles are a far better team. And in fact, some areas you may say if you're expecting 2 pass rushers to be out the door, then they're not going to be better. But that's why it's important to understand that this whole process continues for days, weeks, and months. And I still expect Howie Roseman to be aggressive to fill the holes that he needs to be to make this team as good as it possibly can be for 2024. So with that, we'll get into some of the signings. First, we're going to pause real quick to hear from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right. So sometime today, if you're listening to this podcast on Thursday when it comes out in the morning, word is Saquon Barkley is going to be meeting with the Philadelphia media soon. If it's not today, it'll probably be the next day or soon after. But I know people are getting ready for it. It's going to be odd to see Saquon Barkley in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform. I guess at OTAs is the first time we'll see it. But Howie got a guy, Adam, that here's why it's important for us to take a couple days, right? We make calls, we learn things. We knew that there was interest in Saquon. We reported that in the last pod that previewed free agency. But I think what we've learned along the way is that this is a player that Howie has coveted for quite a while. Really, really liked him coming out of Penn State, but obviously never had a chance until this period to go get him.
Yeah, for sure. In fact, this is one of those situations Howie's not going to be denied. I could tell you, it wasn't a secret. There were other teams involved. They knew this, and I think the agent did a good job of leveraging here for sure. It's what the job of an agent. Did a great job. Saquon changed agents over the last couple of years to CAA, and it did a great job. And Howie, look, he did what he had to do. We'll go over the contract in a minute, but it was a little bit more rich for my blood than I expected. In fact, that's why we just couldn't predict. We're not in predicting who they're signing. We'll tell you, here's who they're on. Here's what we've been told. We'll see where the money goes. It tells you everything. You don't need to know anything else. It's all about money, free agency. It's either they get it or they don't. If they don't get the bag, then you come back and you call the agent and go, hey, you didn't get what you wanted. Hey, we would like to have the player. Here's what we can do. If they get the bag, you got the Barkley kind of deal for a running back. By the way, he got essentially the 2-year franchise tag number. That's the beauty of this.
Mm-hmm.
Tag number this year was 11.95 million. Plus, with the increase next year, it's. I mean, I'm assuming that I don't know this Ed Berry guy, but I'm looking at the first 2 years of cash. It seems to me that it's basically what it would be. The first 2 cash numbers.
Yeah, break down the numbers for everybody.
Yeah, the 2-year cash number is 24.5 million. That's essentially the first 2 years tag back-to-back tags for running back. It's just kind of funny how we did it. I'm assuming that's what he did. That's what the money looks like. So I'll give you the cap numbers because we were asked this in Patreon, our chat. We on our Patreon page you could see the breakdown. But what I'll tell you is it's a typical first-year cap number for any team that's spending a lot of money. The first-year cap number for Barkley is 3.905 million, so under 4 million. His base, and by the way, the guarantees are 26 million. All of the guarantees are fully guaranteed at signing. It's a big 2-year structure. He's not going anywhere. I don't care what happens. If he has a terrible year, he will be with the Eagles next season. They're not walking away. That's the only concern. You never go into a deal thinking it won't work. The teams don't think that way, but you have to look at it when you're an observer, like you and I are, and other teams are. They always look when they look at deals, and we ask contract negotiators, hey, what do you think of this? They'll tell you it's obvious. It's a 2-year structure of 3 years, 2 dummy years, 2 avoidable years, but no option bonuses for a change. This is a rarity. So the first 2 years cash is 24.5 million. And then I don't know why they did this. I don't know if it was like a throw-in because just to make, I don't know why the 1.5 million of Barkley's $12 million in year 3 is fully guaranteed. That's where the other 1.5 million comes in. So it's a legit contract, man. There's no fluff, man. There ain't no fluff in this thing. This thing's real. No. He's got 9 million, as we're told, in incentives, so he can actually make more money. And trust me on this one, if it's playing time statistical achievement, if he hits this, if he hit even 5 million of the escalators, they're loving it. That means he's done a phenomenal job. And you don't go and think it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you're taking a risk on a guy's coming off of a down year. That's not just us saying it, looking at numbers. That's based on what we've told when people watch tape. Yes, the Giants O-line's been dreadful. I don't know how they made the playoffs 2 years with the line they had. A friend of mine who works for another team joked with me. He goes, I dare you to find one offensive line for the Giants who could start for Philly. I go,
well, Andrew Thomas is good, but he
is good, but he's been hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Jordan Mailata is really good. Obviously, it's subjective. It's a toss up, but obviously none of the other guys could start for the Eagles. So yeah, okay. Okay, now you put it that way. Now, but we know the Eagles have 2 offensive line changes. So overall, to move this along here, it's a little bit of a gamble here. Not only by structure, you're thinking that Saquon, because the Eagles line is far superior, we'll have those holes to run through. That's just the way I see it. And we'll get into the pass protection, which people have asked us about, and we'll tell you the truth on that and other stuff. But so what are your thoughts from people you've talked to, and what are your thoughts on this thing?
So, a little conflicted because just didn't see that kind of money coming, and I would say I'm not sure I understand why. I mean, I get that Howie really liked him, but nobody as I don't know if any team as much as the Eagles really obsess over financial value to positional value to market rate and everything. And DeAndre Swift is a player that gave him 1,264 yards last year, total yards at what 1.7 million or something the last year of a rookie deal.
Yep.
And that was more yards than Saquon Barkley had. And I'm not saying you had to bring back DeAndre Swift. I'm just saying
They tried, by the way. They tried.
I'm saying financially, that seems strange that you would almost, I don't know, quadruple the amount of guaranteed money for a guy who just gave you less production than the guy you had on a rookie deal. And I'm not trying to say
it's not apples to apples, but
yes, it's not. Let me make that clear. Saquon Barkley at his best is a better running back than DeAndre
way
Swift
better.
at his
I
best.
think if it is right, if both at their best, yeah, that's where I just want to add. That's where I was going. I thought so. One personnel guy said to me, he goes, "Look, we broke down Barkley for free agents. They were looking for a bargain basement running back. If his market cratered, which obviously it didn't, it was incredible. This team said they would call the agent. They'd check in with him. But he said, listen, if it's blocked up well, he called him unusual with his explosion. You don't find guys like you see the big thighs. He weighs 220 to 230. You don't find guys who can move like he can when he's healthy, and it's blocked right. He's unbelievable acceleration. But you talked about it. He didn't have a good year. It was a down year. You can make any excuse you want. We gave you some of the legit excuses. The line's not very good, but he has some issues with his game, which we weren't quite aware of until we talked to some people. But Howie's thinking like this guy's still special. You have to trust him. And that's kind of where I'm at with him. Like, okay, you think he's great, special? Okay, you're paying him to be special, by the way, with his contract.
Yeah. So, I mean, if he stays healthy and he has a chance to be really special, again, because it's such an out of character move, and it is. I know some people have said, no, they paid LaShawn McCoy, they paid Westbrook at the end. Yes, they paid their own running backs at times where they could get those guys onto more team-friendly deals. I mean, you wouldn't argue that this is a team-friendly deal in any other way other than that quarterbacks are not highly paid people in the NFL and you can get them for short-term money. But I don't know how he felt like they needed it that badly to outbid the others, but that's sort of just philosophical uncertainty on my part. Other than that, if the player's healthy, he's pretty productive. But I really do. I want to get into the one thing that you were alluding to, that you and I both talked to sources, people who have real good familiarity with Saquon Barkley, right? And there's a narrative out there, I guess, that Saquon Barkley's pass protection is so much better than
Swift.
Well, whether it's DeAndre Swift, who was not good at it, but that he's really good in pass protection. And both of us, with different people from different sources, got the opposite. No one's saying he's terrible at it, but you give me what you got on it, and I'll give you what I've got.
Okay. So I got a bunch of stuff through text. So, yeah.
And by the way, that's important because you're paying a guy to be a 3-down linebacker. My phone's ringing too. I wonder. That's funny. But anyway, I wonder.
Stop it if you have to.
Yeah, we will if I have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm just wondering when you pay that much money and you expect a guy to be a 3-down linebacker, and you have Kenny Gainwell there who is pretty good in pass protection. Like Saquon Barkley's got to be better. He's got to excel in this area to make it all worthwhile.
Yeah. So on that point, here we'll go over the positives too of him. Some stuff. He's obviously a wonderful guy, like about as classy as high class as it gets. But from a pass protection standpoint, the tape and the people I spoke to, I can't speak for who you spoke to, but I know the people I spoke to, two of them, I spoke to 3 people, 2 of them graded tape for free agency going back 2 years, not just one. And I would tell you that Saquon doesn't always scan great. The pre-snap scanning, which is very important because you have to ID blitzers and ID what you're supposed to do. Does not use his body well enough physically, picking off defenders. You would think because he's around 230, he can do that. So yeah, it's not good enough. I know there's a narrative, and I don't respond to it because we talk to people working in the league. We're not into grades that are out there. So as much as I love PFF, I'm a huge proponent of them. The people I speak with, personnel people and coaches, don't use the grades for that. They're whatever pass blocking grades. They have their own way that they grade. And talking to people from other teams who are grading the Giants tape, they didn't see whatever narrative is out there. They just didn't see that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't speak to how PFF grades for pass protection. I've never seen those grades. So I'm just going by what people are trying to tell us on whatever social media. Oh, he's a huge great upgrade. I'm like, really? That's interesting. Let me check on that. And I got, as you said, I got major blowback. Like, where are you seeing this? I'm like, I was embarrassed to say it on social media. The guy goes, listen, dude, I'm going to read you what we have. He goes, here's what you can use. And he goes, this is not a criticism of the person. We're just going by what the tape tells us, as Mr. Cosell says.
Right.
And we'll talk about, I talked to Greg earlier this week. Greg is doing our show next week. And remember, it's never personal. He knows Saquon's a great guy. It's what the tape tells him. So
yeah.
That's that.
And I will just, we talk to, we know who we talk to, and we know they're different people, and yet very, very similar. I asked specifically about the pass pro, and the feedback I got was, I'm going to read you literally, quote, average. He can do it, but inconsistent. Now, he notes that he's very smart, like you said. It's not about the sorting or where it's coming from, but needs to use proper technique. He is strong as hell, needs to strike square. So what they mean by strike square is once you identify where the blitz is coming, it's coming. You got to be able to shoot your hands into the incoming blitzer, because if you're just absorbing, you're getting pushed back into the quarterback, and that's not helping. You've got to be able to hold your ground against that incoming blitzer. Usually if you're a running back, it's going to be a linebacker, safety, or a nickel in that regard. So and that's the issue with Saquon. He's a big, strong guy, and I think people just automatically assume that means he's good at pass pro, but he
doesn't play that way.
Better. It doesn't.
By the way, two things. Actually, no, I want to correct. No, I would just make it clear. No, the information I got is different from yours. The people I spoke with said he's not great at sorting, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay. Well, all my guy said was he's intelligent. That doesn't mean you're not.
Oh, yeah. It has nothing to do with intelligence. No, I've used this Alex Smith example, and Christian Ponder, incredibly intelligent, but Christian Ponder couldn't process.
Right.
Why I never made it.
Right.
Alex Smith, as Urban Meyer said, he was going to have problems because he was not asked to process at Utah. And now I can't speak to what Saquon did with the Giants in terms of, I have no idea how he's coached. I just know what the tape looked like from the people I spoke to around the league. And this is their job, because when they write up reports for their coaches or their general manager, go, here's what in pro personnel, this is what they see. Now, obviously, coaches will have their own grade, however they look at it. Here's what we see. But I'm just telling you, the people I spoke with saw an inconsistency, and he does not run physically enough. That Greg confirmed that to me when I talked to him last week. It's not, as Greg said, I've said it on your show before. He goes, it's not when we break down the Giants, when the Eagles would play him, he would say, this is what Saquon is. He's not a drive sustainer. He's an explosive runner. But the one thing I'll say about Saquon is, if it's blocked up, and this is what one of the guys said to me, he goes, the one guy says, you don't see guys like this, that built like that could run that fast in a straight line. And with this line,
unicorn. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You toss it right. Now we'll see what the right side of the line is. Maybe it's left. Who knows? And we'll look into, in fact, that's where PFF is phenomenal. Love to know if they have gap scheme stuff, because Eagles run. They're not as they run a bunch of different schemes. I'd like to know what Saquon is, and this is what we need to find this out. I'd love to know what Saquon's best at. Was he better with zone, inside zone, outside zone, toss right, whatever it is? I'd love to know that. They're phenomenal at that stuff. Again, it's not a criticism of PFF. It's just, if that's what people are using as a guide, the people we speak for who work for NFL teams do not agree with it, and I'm putting it lightly. And that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah. I think that this offense, well, first of all, the offensive line will be an upgrade. Now, there's a whole lot of, well, he goes from the worst offensive line in the league to the best offensive line in the league. And I keep having to, I've been talking about this with Mike Gill on 97.3. Like, we do have to acknowledge that Jason Kelsey is no longer the center, and that the right guard, whoever it's going to be, whether it's Tyler Steen, whether it's somebody they draft, whether it's going to be somebody different. Matt Hennessy has to step in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not Jason Kelsey and Isaac Seumalo, or Jason Kelsey and Cam Jurgens surrounded by Mailata, Dickerson, and Lane. You still have Mailata, Dickerson, and Lane, but I'd like to think, and I'll give the benefit of the doubt to Jeff Stoutland, that the Eagles will be a good offensive line. I just don't know, after watching them take a step back even last year, if we're just automatically assuming this is the best defensive line in football. I think that offensive line, that might be a little bit premature. I'd like to see that first before declaring it. I saw it with Jason Kelsey and Isaac and Brandon Brooks. I don't want to go there, but I do agree with the assessment that it's still better than what the offensive line
better
that the Giants had last year,
better.
and that should help. And the Eagles do run a lot of inside power, inside zone duo. That's the kind of stuff that I think will benefit Saquon really well. For those who don't know, duo is basically when you just see those massive double teams up front, and the linemen don't even leave to the second level. They just try to drive the defensive line back to the second level. So that means the linebackers don't have any linemen in them, but they have to read which way they're going to go. And the running back, who's good, sets that guy up. You look like you're going to go through the left side of the A gap, you go right, or right side, you go left. So Saquon, even if he doesn't have the best vision in the world, he's got so much speed and athleticism. He should be able to just zip right through, and he should be able to get yards by accident on those kind of run schemes.
And no offense to Swift, if Saquon, if it's blocked up, he's going to have a really good year. If it's blocked up well, I'm not worrying about the pass protection stuff. Jamal Singleton's a phenomenal coach. He'll get it. I'm not saying he's going to be great at it, but I have a lot of trust in him. He's a really good coach. It's just he's got to get used to what their blocking scheme and Stout designs, as you know, the run game more or less.
Mm-hmm.
So Saquon's got to, he's new to this offense, but he's so explosive. And there, by the way, it wasn't like he was bad last season. He just wasn't his usual self. He also was a little banged up. Mm-hmm. Now you're playing in by the way, a big spread offense, a great scheme with Kellen Moore. I'm looking forward to seeing what this is going to look like. Again, we're not our job is to tell the truth here. We're not cheerleaders. We don't wave the pom-poms. Mm-hmm. And we're going to give you the positive negatives. We just gave you everything with Saquon. We don't want to take an hour of this. We're going to need to move on, but we want to just make sure because there's a lot of stuff out there that we don't respond in social. I don't know about you, but I just don't do it. I'm like, we'll talk about it here because there's stuff out there.
There you go. At the end of the day, he makes the offense more explosive, but I was thinking even with Kellen Moore, and if they get the blitz thing worked out, they were going to be an explosive offense anyway. It's just sort of like another guy that should get the ball. Like, you got A.J. Brown, you got DeVonte Smith, you got Dallas Goedert. You didn't say that about Swift. We wanted him to get the ball more than Gainwell, but if he only got 8 carries in a game and they won, nobody was going to be like, oh, he only got 8 carries. Like, it never mattered. It feels like it matters now a little bit more how much the running back might touch the ball for what you're paying him, but that's something to worry about during the season. Right now, obviously, we'll see how it goes. All right, let's go to the other offensive players that they have signed. They signed a wide. Let's go actually with the offensive lineman first. Matt Hennessy, because he's a local kid, went to Temple, plays guard and center. Adam, I know this is sound like the most nerdy, wonky football thing to say. This is actually my favorite signing so far.
Is it? Why?
Because what have I said the Eagles need for a year now? Basically, an interior offensive lineman who can snap the football if need be. He has snapped the football. You could not go into 2024 with Cam Jurgens playing center as the only person on your roster who's ever snapped the ball, because what happens if Jurgens gets hurt? For the longest time they had, you do have Landon Dickerson, but now he's your left guard in trench. So you don't want to move him to center. But for the longest time, Seumalo was once viewed as the future center. Landon Dickerson once viewed as the future center, but then they got Jason Kelsey and he never wound up retiring. Then Cam Jurgens was the future center. Well, he's here now. He is the center. There's no Kelsey, and Dickerson's your left guard. So you really needed some depth, a guy who could play multiple positions and who has started games in the NFL. I'm not trying to make him out to be something great. He could be Steph Wisniewski, just a guy who's
might be
piece who could help.
Honestly,
yeah, he might be.
He was probably overdrafted by Atlanta. He wound up getting benched. He started some games. As I said on our Money show, sign a guard center, not one who could just play one position. That was not going to work for them. They needed someone who could play two positions. He can. He's a little bit undersized. He has some athleticism to him. Our understanding was that Stout loved him for that. Let me see, what draft was that? 2020. He was a third rounder of Atlanta out of Temple, as you said. So this is a guy that Stout liked a lot. And you know how it works.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to sign a guy who Stout doesn't like. I mean, I know how he makes the call. I get that. But, he's consulted and everything when it comes to the offensive line. So we'll see. As we noted on Monday's show, Driscoll is looking to potentially start somewhere. And that's, if he doesn't return, that would be the reason. And now, so you would think seemingly that this issue now is solved for the top backup guard center. He has starting experience. And then the next thing is, do they need Fred Johnson's the top backup left tackle? Brett Toth is here again. LaRaven Clark is back. Your guy Darian Kennard, you had great information on him a couple weeks ago. Do they need to add another guy? One more, maybe not. Maybe.
Oh well, I mean, you certainly get. Starting right guard is not going to be handed to Tyler Steen, right? I mean, he's going to have to compete for it. So I imagine, the Eagles are going to draft an offensive lineman and probably draft someone on day one or day two. So if they can, a lot of these tackles have guard versatility in the draft, so wouldn't shock me.
I wonder if Hennessy, we weren't told this, but we'll look into it. I wonder if Hennessy was signed here early, because remember, he agreed on Tuesday, I think. So is he going to be given it? Is he there to push Steen at right guard? I don't know. We'll look into it.
It's possible. I mean, he shouldn't. I mean, Tyler Steen's a really good athlete who's learning that position. Played at Alabama. Like you would think he should have the leg up, but hey, maybe Matt Hennessy, because he's starting before and third round pick. Yeah, I mean, they're both third round picks, so you make a good point. Maybe he was there to push Tyler Steen, but either way, that makes it one of my kind of signings that I really like, because it's such a need and it's a great value depth signing for the team. All right, the DeVante Parker, wide receiver. This is an interesting one for a variety of reasons. One, I'll let you explain it. I mean, he's technically was with the Patriots, and they didn't.
Still is, actually.
He is, yeah. As we record this, he still is.
Yeah, he needs to be released. He was not released as of Wednesday. He was given permission to seek a trade and negotiate a contract with another team. It's really odd. Like, it got reported by ESPN before he was even released. It's just crazy. So that's why the Eagles will announce it as soon as he's officially released. In fact, if he's released by 4 p.m. Eastern today, they could announce it at 4:01 because the contract's done. It's really funny. I've never seen anything like this before. It's actually it kind of reminded me. I don't know in your reporting if this has ever happened. I had something out many years ago that I put something out, a player was going to be released, and then he wasn't. The club called me back, said, "Hey, we found a trade partner, so you probably want to update your report," because they saw me put something on Twitter, and the other team called that team. I think it was for like maybe, remember TJ Yates was a quarterback from Atlanta?
Yes.
Now a coach somewhere. But anyway, so with this one, it's similar in that they gave him all sorts of permission. They wanted him off the team. So like, hey, go get your deal, to his agent Jimmy Gold, who's been around forever. And he's had Parker forever. And so let's just assume it's going to happen, that we're just going to assume this is happening, right?
Yep.
He'll be the third receiver. There's no doubt. Now, we don't have the contract breakdown. We need to see what the real money is, because the real, how much is guaranteed at signing on the 1-year deal will tell you everything you need to know about whether this guy will definitely be on the team, or you got to earn his way. If it's 1 year, $4 million, fully guaranteed, the chances, unless he falls flat on his face, he's going to be on the roster. So he'll be the third receiver. At least that's what you think coming in. They don't have a 4 or 5. And he's got to prove himself. And Kellen Moore's roots are in 11 personnel. He's very much like Doug Peterson. Spread, go, explosive, shotgun, spread, play action. Parker's was a really talented player early in his career. That's why he was a first-round pick out of Louisville. He's had a ton of lower body injuries. He's only been on IR once or twice. But, man, he's missed a decent amount of time. Lots of lower body injuries on the injury report almost every week, every season. I chart this stuff. He's been limited. I know that Mac Jones struggled the last 2 seasons. That's part of Parker's inability to separate. But he has not been the same player since early in his career. And the question is, to move this forward, you mentioned, okay, could he be the third receiver? Theoretically, he will be the third receiver. That's if he still has good legs left. I don't know if the guy could run anymore.
So
We'll see.
he's the number 3 receiver on the depth chart totem pole, but not
Yeah.
how we ordinarily view a number 3 receiver as a slot receiver. He is not someone who is built. He's
He
not someone
can't
who
play. He's
played
not
a
a
whole
slot.
lot in the slot.
He's
So
not, period, dude. He's not a slot receiver. He
right.
can't
So
play
he's
inside.
really
Yeah,
your
outside
4th
receiver.
receiver because eventually the team will have a slot receiver who will be the number 3
I
receiver.
don't agree with that,
Why?
honestly.
Because you're going to be in
Because
11 personnel all the time, right?
yeah, well, DeVante could play inside.
All right. You're telling me that if the Eagles go and get a slot receiver, that they're going to rather have DeVante Parker on the field and DeVante in the slot and not the
No,
slot
no,
receiver that
you're
they
not
signed?
understanding.
I'm
They're
not.
going to add another receiver. The guy could play inside or outside.
Sure.
There'll be times when that third receiver will play inside. There'll be
Mhm.
some times that guy could play outside. Parker also will be the guy who will play outside. So they'll be able to rotate that guy. I get your point. That third guy should be an inside receiver, but I'd be surprised. I'm looking at the list of
All right. I was
receivers.
thinking of a snap percentage standpoint. Do you think whoever they sign that's going to wind up playing the most snaps in the slot is going to play fewer snaps than DeVante Parker overall? I'm not even
I don't
certain
know.
DeVante's making the team.
Again, it's going to be contract based. It'll tell you there's never any lock with a backup player,
Uh-huh.
but if his whole contract is whatever ESPN reported, 4.1 million, it might have been up to 4.1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Which if that's what it is, obviously the number's going to be lower than that. But if the guarantee is almost the entire contract, it's going to be
Well,
hard for him
yeah,
to be cut because you're expecting when you guarantee 4 million of the guy's entire contract, you're expecting the
sure.
guy to be a factor. Now, on your point, yes, you need someone who can play slot. DeVante can't be in the slot all the time, but he's going to play inside. He can do that. He's a talented run after the catch. He could line up anywhere. He's their Z. I know Nick doesn't like to say that. We have inside receivers and outside
Right.
receivers, but come on, folks. He's a move receiver. He's a Z. DeVante will line up inside some. He certainly will. But here's on your point though. We have no idea if Parker could even be a 3, just in terms of when they go 11 personnel. If he's on the field, let's say he only gets 30% of the snaps, right?
Uh-huh.
When he's on the field, can he even run? We're not going to know. We're not going to know
Right.
for a while. They're backing on him based on their tape study. He can, but I'm not so sure. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if this deal winds up, we'll see. Being what Schefter reported, which is that the Eagles are only on the hook for 1.2 million of it guaranteed, then I think that changes I think to me that's like you may not make the team.
Well, that you know what that is? The veteran minimum is around 1.2 million or 1.15. It's around that number. So that would mean it's just they're guaranteed the minimum base.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what it is, we haven't got we usually get these things pretty quick, but it's not. He's not even off the Patriots roster yet, so we don't know yet. But for sure, for officially. But the fact of the matter is, it remains to be seen. And again, they don't have a 4 or 5 right now. Covey is obviously the punt returner.
Right.
Had a couple snaps slot late. They got Ngata, who's got to prove he can make the team. Oscar Watkins, they're excited about. He's got to prove he can make the team. Your guy, Jacob Harris, who's a pretty freakish athlete, but he's got to make the team. Shaquan Davis. And it's funny, we mentioned all these guys. They gave all these guys, Watkins, Harris, Davis, guaranteed money. Some of them pretty good guaranteed money.
Uh-huh.
Which they'll get no matter what. If they're on the practice squad, they have to get it if they don't make the roster. So bottom line is they have a lot of work to do though at the receiver position. I'm not sold on DeVante Parker to move this along here. I know the way pro personnel people I've talked about him. One guy said, man, his legs with those ankle injuries, lower body, knee and stuff, not the same player once was. At 31, you have to ask yourself, why the Patriots, who are terrible at receiver, why they moon on from?
Yeah.
Always have to ask that.
Yeah, you and I are in the same boat on that. We see that clearly on DeVante Parker. All right, let's get into the signings that they've made on defense. Before we do that, we know that your resolution is to save money, eat better, and stress less. That's why HelloFresh has helped you. It's here for you to do all 3. So say hello to your most delicious year yet with fresh ingredients and chef-crafted recipes at a price you're going to love, delivered right to your doorstep. So you've resolved to actually sit down at the dinner table and eat like a family. What do you do those nights, though, when your schedule is jam-packed? That's when you turn to HelloFresh's lineup of quick and easy meals, and that includes their 15-minute recipes, all designed to help you minimize mealtime stress. That is our type of meal right there. Every time we eat from HelloFresh, we are blown away by the freshness, the taste, and overall quality. Doesn't matter if it's a 15-minute meal or one of their specialty meals. We've tried all the options and they're great. You have something for everybody, whether you love chicken, steak, seafood. If you're a vegetarian, they got it if you want it. All right. Now they have a great deal. If you go to HelloFresh.com/Eagles free and use the code Eagles free, you get free breakfast for life. That's one breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. Free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/Eagles free with the code Eagles free. It's just a one-word code, all lowercase, Eagles free, EAGLESFREE. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, Adam, we knew the Eagles had to be aggressive on defense, and they certainly were early on, and they add to their pass rush by signing a guy that you and I spoke about on the podcast and also with Greg Cosell on the Intel with Greg Cosell, the Jets pass rusher, Bryce Huff. 3 years, $51 million. It is not unlike the Eagles to want to address their pass rush, but even more so with the uncertainty surrounding Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick.
Yeah. So the one thing, and it's not a negative. I'm going to talk to Ryan Silverfield, his head coach at Memphis. I want to know why he was not drafted Bryce Huff, because he is really gifted. This guy, he had a great year. Now, the one challenge is, okay, well, why couldn't he start over Jermaine Johnson? I get Jermaine Johnson was a first round pick who struggled his first year. Last year was a breakout season. Like, why couldn't he push him to start? Now, as a bench player, his pressure numbers are ridiculous. And he's relentless. He's got length, which is what we were told that Fangio wants length with his, the late great Jim Johnson. He was good with smaller players. We talked about this Monday. We were talking about Bryce Huff. The Eagles wanted him. They're going to chase him. They got him. Jim loved, the fastballs, and Vic wants guys who are longer. That's typically what you want, guys with length, and he's in the neighborhood of 6'3" plus and 250 plus. We'll look into his real weight, what it is, what did he play at last season? But and we'll look into what the Jets thought about him. But great story development. What a job Joe Douglas did. I mean, the undrafted free agent getting an unbelievable deal. So, what is his role? He's going to be a stand-up pass rusher. That's what his role is going to be. We're not expecting Sweat to be with the team this season, one way or the other. Josh, we checked into this over the last week. When I called you the Friday before the story got out, I said, hey, there's something going on with Sweat. He may not be here. Don't know what it is. Got to figure it out. Not in trouble off the field, but we're just the feedback we were getting, like his tape wasn't very good. And then we checked into it, like, oh boy. Trying to, I think what happened was, move this part along here. They were not buying in, but it was one thing with Desai, but then it was with Patricia, because Patricia changed the defense around it. And there was this belief that watching the tape show that Sweat was trying to do his own thing because he wants a new contract because the guaranteed money's up. Because I looked at his contract when I got all this information, a week and a half ago. I was like, well, I don't understand this, guys. I understand his tape wasn't good in the second half, but apparently his tape was worse than I thought. So, yeah, everyone around the league thinks he's being moved, and no one's ruling out that him being released. It's always going to be tape based. Every decision is tape based. Yeah, obviously it would affect the cap. I mean, because if you're releasing a guy with proration on his contract, that affects it. But that's not why you're moving on from it. It's all about what he has done. He was not good enough last season. So
yeah,
it sucks. I feel bad. I mean, it just doesn't sound good. Hard to imagine he's going to be the team. I leave it at that. With Reddick, they got to figure this out. We were talking in Wednesday night with our Patreon people. To me, and you just said it earlier when I asked you, if you're going for it, why would you trade Reddick?
Yeah,
unless you have a plan to replace him.
Yeah, all along I've thought that they should just try to make it work and give him a little more money for one last year, and then let him walk, and then get a great comp pick next year in return, assuming that they are not going to be as aggressive next year as they are this year in free agency. And there's the comp pick conversation for this offseason, not going to happen. The Eagles have already spent way too much money to be involved there. Yeah. But next year,
Okay.
hey, I'm sure they'll be back into the comp pick game, and guys are gonna probably be leaving. So I would, I've made it sort of comparable to the Chris Jones situation. He wasn't happy. He even held out for a while, and the Chiefs said, "All right, we'll see you when you report." And he reported, and they won a Super Bowl because he had no other option other than I'll hold out for the whole year. And I don't think Hassan Reddick is going to hold out for the whole year either. You could lose a lot of money. You lose an accrued. It just there's going the Le'Veon Bell route has not benefited Le'Veon or anybody else. So I don't think it has to be that ugly. I think you can work with him after you're done making your moves to get him a little extra money or at least build incentives in. You got another double-digit sack year. We'll give you another $1.5 million. You get this. We'll give another. You can make it work for at least one last year before he walks off into the sunset. As long as he's all right with that. But again, I don't know what his market is. I don't know if he has discovered that nobody's willing to give up a first round pick or a top 50 pick and pay him, $60 million over the next 3 years.
The word we got it.
It could work.
The word we got is they want more than a second round pick for him. As you said, to give up that type of pick, whatever the heck it would be, plus you got to pay him. He's 30 years old. That's a tough ask. Not saying it can't happen. We'll see. It's just kind of a weird deal, man, because Huff is going to start. The contract says he has to, based on what he's being paid. You need two guys to start. BG's a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Who starts opposite Huff? We don't know yet. I mean, that's to be determined.
Like, what are you on the edges with Bryce Huff added, who, by the way, has never played more than 42% of the snaps in a season and is not really known for being a great run defender, more of a situational pass rusher with the Jets. An excellent one, not doubting those skills. And they said the same thing about Hassan Reddick, and he turned into a very good every down lineman for the Eagles, or pass rusher for the Eagles. But if you are getting rid of both Sweat and Reddick, and your pass rush top four is Bryce Huff, Nolan Smith, Brandon Graham, and who am I missing? Are we getting down to, Patrick Johnson territory here?
No, he's a special team. So, no,
of course they would add somebody, but my point is that is not Super Bowl caliber.
Not good enough, right? And that's why I asked you earlier. I'm like, do you think they're going for it? Now, everything and how he's done would suggest he is. So you've got right now, as we speak, we're going to we're assuming Sweat won't be on the team. As of now, I don't see it. I mean, you never say never, but right now I don't see it working out well here, based on everything we found out here. And there's been a lot of reporting. I'm not sure folks know it's all out there that every outlet's reporting is going to be moved, or they're trying to. So anyway, we're not the only ones.
So let me ask you this:
mother,
if they were to keep Hassan Reddick, which I think you and I would agree, of the two, it seems like Sweat is the one that they'd be most likely to just completely move on from if they had to.
Why cut him? Why?
Listen, I don't know why. I'm just telling you that's the vibe we're getting, right? Who would be your starting edge defender?
All right, right now, if they move on from Sweat,
but keep Reddick,
it's Reddick, it's Bryce Huff, and your three is Nolan Smith. Now, Nolan Smith was a first round pick. I know they were not banking on him to be drafted. He was the 30th pick overall. I know it's the end of the first round, but nevertheless, he was the first round pick. Didn't really play much. Didn't show much. He's got to play. And BG obviously would be the fourth.
Yeah.
We don't know anything about Nolan Smith. We don't know about, I know the Eagles will tell you that they know about Bryce Huff. We might say we don't know about him because he's never been a full-time starter. They're not thinking that way. They're like, oh no, yes, we know about the snap percentage, but we're paying him to be special. So their word's going to be different from ours because we don't have access to what they think. But the money tells you all you need to know. They think he's going to be great. So if they're right on that, they need someone on the other side who can do it. Smith is a complete unknown. That can't be defended because it's an absolute fact. Nobody knows anything about him yet. And now, if Reddick is still on the team, and that way they could still bring Nolan Smith along. Hassan will be 30. We know that Smith's going to replace Reddick anyway whenever Reddick is done. If he's still on the team and they don't extend him, maybe you give Hassan a little bit of time off, a little bit more time off in games. You reduce the snaps just a little bit, getting all on the field. But to answer your question, that's it. Patrick Johnson's a really good special teams player. Go ahead.
Do you realize how light on the edges they would be if they started both Hassan Reddick and Bryce Huff?
Huff's 250. I mean, he's 250.
250. Yeah, that's still like Vic Fangio just came from Miami where he had 200 and what 80, 290 pound
We
Bradley
inherited
Chubb.
that, right? I get that. I inherited those guys.
But I'm saying, like, in a 5-man front, your defensive ends are usually give you a little bit. They're run defenders. Like, you
Well,
have to
no,
play the run.
right, and right, and I use the point of when he had Draymond Jones. Draymond Jones excelled with Vic,
Sure.
and now he didn't do well with Seattle last season, but he was a perfect five technique. I mean, he was. I mean, this is what you're looking for. And unfortunately, it didn't happen for him in Seattle last season. But your bottom line is the defense is kind of fluid. It's got, and with Vic, see, here's the thing. We know he plays two coverages. What is it? Cover three
And quarters.
and quarters. But his front is a 34 with two overhangs. Now, how much is he going to play with? Is he going to do? Because the Eagles do a lot of three defensive tackles. Is he going to have a lot with Fletch retired? Is he going to play with a lot with Milton Williams, Davis, and Carter? Because Carter's obviously going to be technically a starter now with Fletch gone. See, there's a lot we don't know. How is he going to align up front? And then depth-wise, as we move this along with free agency, do they need one more veteran defensive tackle? I would say yes, because they don't have one right now.
100%, 100%. And if both of those DNs leave, or pass rushers, I should say, leave, then they need some veteran help there as well. Yeah, and a lot to figure out. You can be light on the edges if you're playing this 5-man front. You just then need to have bigger linebackers than what the Eagles typically have. Because if you're set, if you're light on the edges, and your guys are really good at setting the edge and forcing the run back up the field, then your linebacker has to come in and make that tackle and fill that gap quickly.
So as explained to me, the Pittsburgh 34, they don't run Fangio. Their 34 is much different. There's an old school 34.
Yeah.
They want their stand-up outside linebackers to have size.
Yep.
T.J. Watt, 6'4", 250.
Yep.
He's a little bit bigger than Huff. Alex Highsmith has been a great story development. Not quite as big, 6'3", 240, 245.
Right.
In fact, they typically are a little bit longer.
Yeah.
The old school guys were a little bit longer and beefier, as you like to say.
Oh yeah, the Kevin Greens, the Greg Lloyds, even
Lloyd was
LeBeau. Dick LeBeau had the Lamar Woodley. I mean, he had guys who were like who could be down linemen if they had to be, but they were athletic enough to stand up.
Yeah, so we'll see. There's a lot because the Eagles are running Fangio with the real Fangio, so there's a lot we need to learn. And I remember we had Paul Gunther on, our friend who's now with the Cowboys, right? Yeah, the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So he studied their tape and the Vic's tape before, so he knows it pretty well. And he said Vic likes a certain, he kind of what you alluded to. He does like a certain body type, but we'll see what happens. So that's so right now. You mentioned Huff. We'll get to Gardner-Johnson second, but the one that really, I don't want to say it surprised me, is Zack Baun and Greg. I talked to Greg Cosell earlier this week, and Greg said, listen, he's aware that, I asked him, I said, do you think he could play off the ball? Because he's kind of going to have to at this point, because he's not really an edge rusher. He goes, well, here's the thing you need to know. He didn't line up much as an off-the-ball linebacker, mostly as an edge, but he didn't really rush the passer much. He barely played. He's really a special teams player. So you asked the question before, who are their edges? He's not really an edge rusher. He was in college, but to me, they're so light at off the ball inside backer in this 34 front. He's got to I don't think there's any choice here. He's got to play inside.
I mean, if he has to play, then we're having a conversation, a bad defense conversation.
So you think
I believe he's depth / special teams.
Oh, you think, okay. So you think,
I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know why you had to sign him on day one. I don't know what the market was like. Maybe somebody really liked him. I don't know.
Okay.
But I mean, he's been more of if I'm not mistaken, he's played more on special teams than on defense.
Way more, yes.
Yeah. I mean, listen, he might actually not be as good as Nick Morrow. I'm not trying to be a jerk or disparaging. I think he's literally signed for special.
But you know what?
Because I'm gonna connect dots. Yeah. There's a lot of moves left to be made. Ben Van Sumeren was a very good special teamer for them. We may be seeing Van Sumeren on the field a little more based on what we saw against the Giants. I don't know, but I'm just looking at this guy's resume and saying, there's no way you're projecting him to play like 60% or even your first and second down for you, right?
Ready for this?
Yeah.
Ready on your point? Special team snap through 4 seasons, 1,293 special team snaps.
Yeah.
Comparatively to 660 on defense, he never played his highest percentage defensive snap total was last season at just 27. And I always laugh when it says game started. Starting only means who's technically in for the first play. It doesn't tell you anything else.
Right.
Just look at the snap total. He played 301 snaps on defense and more in specials of 385. So yeah, you might be right. I don't know. I still, if I had to put my money on it, I'd say he'd play more inside. But on your point, yeah, if he plays on defense, maybe he's just because he replaces Morrow on defense. But I would tell you this though, typically there's someone for each team that they call it being a champion for a player. Like, you go through when you meet with the coaches, where you sit down with your pro personnel people. Oh, I love this guy. I'm telling you that New Orleans wouldn't play him. Let's give him a shot here. I love his tape. Someone had to vouch for this guy because this is like, as you said, although I would tell you last year was bizarre. The Eagles signed a bunch of guys in the first week on 1-year deals, prove-it deals, like who you would normally sign like a month into free agency. So I'm not sure what to think other than, okay,
Right.
I'm sure it's a cheap deal and we'll see.
But that's where I see the similarity. Remember, Nick Morrow signed on the first day of the legal tampering period, right? But he was never supposed to be he was supposed to be what Baun, I think, is a special teams guy.
Yeah.
When the season started, it was supposed to be Nakobe Dean and Zach Cunningham. That was your starting linebacker tandem. Morrow was actually cut, right? Then brought back. He was supposed to be your backup who is going to play a lot of special teams. That's what I imagine Zack Baun is supposed to be. So as I've said this before about other players like Brett Toth, right? If this guy is starting or he has to go out and play a majority of snaps for you, you're probably in a bad way. And that's no disrespect to Zack Baun.
I remember that. You said, okay, so
yeah, against the Ravens, because he was like the 8th lineman on the team, and somehow he had to go.
And he started.
Yeah.
And he started because you jinxed it. Yeah.
He wound up playing. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. He had to play. So, and then the last one, not least, of course, this is the fun one. We alluded to this on Sunday's show. Yeah, he's on their list. We'll see about CJ Gardner-Johnson. They went in early. 3 years, $33 million. We haven't got the breakdown yet. What the real money is. Last year's structure, we were told was 3 years, 1 year fully guaranteed. My sense is, based on the little feedback I got on this contract, is that the guarantee is a little bit higher than their offer last year. But I think because CJ got hurt 2 years in a row, both significant injuries, and again, give him credit for coming back from a torn pectoral muscle. Talking to someone with the Lions during the season, they were like, "Wow, give this guy credit. He's coming back well before we projected. He's a baller," but he lost his job to Ife Melifonwu. So, and that was it. He had no chance. So he's going somewhere where he definitely will start. The question is, he just a safety? You saw how great he was when he moved inside. What a story he was 2 years ago. The Eagles, they wanted him back last year, and he felt insulted. To his credit, he went on Twitter. I don't know if his agent, Kevin Conner, told him to, but good for him. He apologized to the fans. I mean, what's funny? They saw how wacky he was 24 hours before the thing cratered, before he went to Detroit. As crazy as he was acting, and he was on Twitter, like it must have had like a 20 posts. Fans didn't they saw he's just a little bit out there. They didn't crush him like I thought. It's
almost like they expect it.
Right, exactly. Right.
He's a little wacky like that. Yeah.
This guy is, he owns his own gamer company. Good for him. And I watched him. I mentioned this before months ago, but now it's really pertinent. So, folks, this is going to take 30 seconds. So it's with the Lions hosting the Jaguars, and I know for a fact that the Lions coaches are egging him on to do it, to just mess with because they wanted to have a great scrimmage against the Jaguars. So he was just being loud and obnoxious. And Doug Peterson kept saying, "Dude, would you stop it? We're trying to run our plays." And Doug just usually get mad.
Yeah.
Gardner-Johnson wouldn't stop doing it. I mean, he's a pest. I think you had this note when they signed him 2 years ago. You had heard that he acknowledged that he needs to dial his stuff down a little bit because he annoyed his former temeammates.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he did with the Eagles, but the dude is a terrific football player. You could say whatever you want about missed tackles, done noise. I know we had these notes a couple years ago, but the dude is a baller. I mean, he's a really good player.
listen, what did we say? I remember saying going into the year, even with all the additions that the team had made and this and that, we're like, there's just not a lot of playmakers without CJ
Yeah.
Gardner-Johnson. Even Marcus Epps was maybe not an interceptor, but he was quick to the ball and he would hit you hard. It just felt like the Eagles were lacking that tenacity and playmaking ability in the back end. And they did. They were terrible. I mean, they were awful. They were the worst back end in the NFL last year.
Well,
Not just because of safeties, but so it makes sense to bring him back. Now it's just you're right. What the events that led to you made him an offer, he was insulted. You have a little bit of words back and forth, and then the next year you decide to bring him back is sort of only an Eagle story. But
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
here now. The only thing I question, he's played in the Vic Fangio scheme before because that's what Jonathan Gannon was running his version of it.
Yeah,
But
sure,
we know
sure.
Vic's a real stickler on this is your assignment.
Yep.
You do the assignment, you carry it out. Vic's big on that. I think Gannon was a little less stickler because there's a certain freelance element to CJ Gardner-Johnson's game that we said is sort of like your gift and your curse. You're really not supposed to do some of these things, but because you do it, you wind up picking up off passes that most safeties don't. So that's good. But is the defensive coordinator now going to be all right with that? That just remains to be seen.
I don't know. I mean, they've what's the guy's? They have a young safeties coach.
Joe Casper.
Yes, who was with them before, and that's Vic's protege. So this is, and he was here 2 years ago, so he knows Gardner-Johnson.
Right.
I'm sure he knows him. So we'll see how that works out. But the bottom line is, CJ's back. This is gonna be fun. He's a chirper, man. He doesn't stop. What's that?
It's definitely going to be fun.
Doesn't stop, man. I was just blown away by his annoyance with the Jaguars. They just couldn't deal with it. They had to stop practice. Crazy.
Yeah.
But
by the way, kudos to you for hitting on the head with Kevin Byard, where you kept saying like, just because the year looked bad, right? You have to remember he played in 3 different defenses in 1 year, Tennessee's, and then the 2 different Eagles defenses. And the Bears recognize that. At least the Bears believe you, Adam, because they signed him to a deal that I thought was more than he might get on the open market and got him before the tampering period even started. So that was a good call by you.
Yeah, Byard, we'll see. He's 31. It's just a shame because he was coming home. And what a train wreck the Eagles defense was last season. But that would be it. And then to close this out, they did 4 extensions, and for what I understand, they're probably not going to be done. So it was Dickerson, 4 years, high-paid interior. What's that?
I just want to set the table here before we get into extensions. We're going to pause to hear a word from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to stop in the Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, Pennsylvania, not only should you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you because you'll get a great deal, but you might even get, and only our YouTube watchers will really recognize this, a fantastic zip-up pullover that Adam Caplan's wearing right now for courtesy of Sky Motor Cars.
Yep. Get a large. They run big.
There you go. Awesome. You got to get one, though. They're very flashy look. They're very nice.
It's a beauty, yeah. Right off 202. You cannot miss it in Westchester.
Awesome. All right. So, extensions. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So Dickerson we don't have the numbers yet on Dickerson, but 4 years, highest paid interior lineman in NFL history. They do. They started with Joe Banner in the 90s and 2000s until the NFLPA put in the Banner rule, which said you cannot extend players after 2 years. You have to do it after 3. So Landon's played 3. He just got his contract extended for 4 more years. They got him for 5 now, this year and 4 others. Over $21 million. We'll take a look at it when we get it. Then they went with I love what they did here. They extended their special teamers. Elliott, 4 years, ties Justin Tucker, highest paid kicker in NFL history.
Mm-hmm.
Braden Mann got 2 years, $4.2 million. And then they got, but what a signing he was. And we joked, man, no offense to Braden Mann, but he wound up being their best free agent signing last year. Oops. But hey, great signing, no doubt. They got the punter thing served. Their special teams kicker, punter, Lovato's been here for a long time. He resigned for 1 season. Boy, give Michael Clay and Tyler Brown credit for turning this thing around. I know people were on Michael Clay a couple years ago. I get it. But man, they got Braden Mann. Give Howie Roseman credit, obviously, for getting it right at punter. Elliott, what? And as I said before, people forgot about this. We haven't mentioned it in years. Boy, Marvin Lewis, what he said was so stupid about when Elliott left the Bengals to join the Eagles. He took a shot at the Eagles. Why would you want to go there? Okay, Marvin, do you think he knew what he was doing?
I think so. Yeah, seriously. The Eagles have had some pretty good success finding kickers from other teams, but this is the first long-term one since like Akers, right? Because Akers did not originally come up through the Eagles. Wasn't he with Washington or Dallas or something?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Steelers maybe, but yeah, and Jake, another Memphis player.
Yeah, man. The Eagle. I was gonna bring that up, right?
I don't know what's going on with that.
Bryce Huff, Memphis. Jake Elliott, Memphis. Kenny Gainwell, Memphis. Jannard Avery.
Well, he's not. Yeah, I don't know. He's with the Colts, but yeah.
Well, is he not a former Eagle in the last few years?
Yeah. I know. Did he go? I have no idea where he went to school.
I'm almost positive Jannard Avery was a Memphis player.
Okay.
So Eagles falling in love with maybe they think Memphis is in the SEC because it's down there.
Good call. Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. In fact, man, let me see. Browns, Eagles, Bucks. Oh, they made that trade. Steelers. Wow, Colts. Good for him. Yeah, they re-signed him.
Yeah.
So there you go. So we'll see. So people, one more thing. What are they still in the market for? Quarterback. You know, we put this out over the weekend. Easton Stick's a guy they're very interested in. Now, I thought Dan Jeremiah said something interesting. Former Eagle scout, who's with NFL Network as a draft analyst. He was just talking about, because I know you and I know this, that their team's looking at Justin Fields. Forget about being a starter. Like if you're looking for a backup, he'd be a guy you probably want to take a look at. So. I mean, I'm not sure if the Eagles are interested in Justin Fields, but it certainly makes sense because he can move and he's pretty gifted. He's just not very accurate.
Now, are the Eagles going to be? Are they going to be the aggressor here, and say we'll give you a 2 for Justin Fields?
No, 2. He's not even going to get a. He'll be, what, are you joking? Or are you serious?
What do you think he's going to wind up getting?
No. No.
No. You think a 5 is going to do it?
That's 2. Are you out of your mind? This could be a backup.
Mason, man, we didn't think they were going to take Jalen Hurts in the second round. They took David Taylor in the third.
No. I hear, but that's a draft. But again,
no, I know. But I'm saying it's sort of like using a draft pick on a backup quarterback, right?
I get it, but
on Jalen Hurts.
There are 2 problems here with Justin Fields. His 5th-year option is due. Whoever has him is going to decline it, which means this will be the last year of his deal. And then the other thing is he's going to be a backup. There are no starting jobs open. Now, what I think is troubling, that's another point about Justin Fields, that Luke Getsy, the OC, who coached him for 2 years, well, I'm sure he had some input with Tom Telesco, the general manager. They signed Gardner-Minshew for $12.5 million a year. They could have had Justin Fields for a song and a dance. They didn't want him.
They could have. Yeah.
Right?
I was just getting you riled up, by the way. I wasn't really thinking they were going to give up a 2 for.
I was like, he can't be serious. But here's the point, though. They thought someone, when I was at the combine, said to me, "Oh, they think they're getting something. Atlanta doesn't want them." He goes, "It doesn't fit what they do." Running West Coast, and obviously they didn't want him because they got Kirk Cousins and they paid out to ask for him.
Yep.
In terms of money, and then Pittsburgh, they could have had Justin Fields. They just signed Russell Wilson for $1.50. I mean,
yeah.
So
I tell you, I would take the chance. I would. Not with a 2, obviously, but I'm just saying I would absolutely bring him in. I mean, yeah, I would do it.
I mean, you got Doug Nussmeier's work with quarterbacks. You know, I know they work with Nussmeier and Kellen Moore work with Easton Stick last year, but man, I thought I saw the headline. I didn't read the full story. I just saw like one line of text. I didn't read like the whole story, but I thought that was fascinating that Jeremiah threw that. I don't know if he talked about the Eagles. He just talked about him. You know, you trade for him, or maybe he did talk about the Eagles. I don't know. I didn't. Yeah,
I'm sure he referenced how aggressive they are just at that position and how they value the backup. Okay. I mean, I didn't hear it either, but I could see Daniel sort of rationalizing why the Eagles would be a team to watch for, given their history of addressing the backup quarterback position.
I would give up a 5 in a heartbeat. I would give up a 5 for him because the dude is gifted.
Yeah.
He just cannot play consistent football. He's accuracy issues, but he's got a rocket arm. He's got a big body. And he can run. Hell yeah. You could the upside with that guy, if he had to play. I love when he's on, man. I've seen him when he's on, like that Washington game. I don't know if you saw that game where I think DJ Moore had 200 some odd yards.
Mm-hmm.
He was throwing bullets. I know
Yeah.
he wasn't under pressure, but he throws a beautiful ball. So
He does.
I
When
digress.
he squares up and throws, it's a beautiful
There
ball.
you go.
I definitely think he's a project worth investing
Yeah.
something low in. That would make
Sure.
sense. All right, that just seals it all up there. Yeah, the Eagles. And I'll just end it on this because we said it in the Ask ITB live stream, and I'll repeat it here. I still think that there's a big swing for this team. It may not be a free agent, it might
Oh.
be a trade,
Okay.
maybe something. I don't think that it's. And as we should always remind, the off season doesn't end until literally the day before the season starts because Howie
Yes,
made
thank
some
you.
of his best moves in
Oh.
June, July, and late August going into September.
One more thing.
go
Yes,
ahead.
one more thing. I just want to say cornerback, they have to do something at corner. Either not, either leading up to the draft or in the draft, they have to do something significant. They have to have a better corner.
Yep.
They can't CJ is a safety. You could play him at slot corner, but he's not a corner. He's not an outside corner. Like Brian Branch is, by the way. Brian Branch, the Lions love him as an outside. They love him as anything, inside corner, outside corner, safety.
Yeah.
But that's not CJ. So they need a corner. They need another off the ball linebacker. They need a safety. They need another safety. Again, as you said, rest of free agency, leading up to the draft, after the draft, leading up to training camp. Offensively, a couple more receivers for depth. Do they need one more running back? Probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just for depth.
Oh, of
that's
course
it.
you do because you don't know if Saquon's going to stay healthy. You definitely need a running back.
Yeah. I mean, with Lou Nichols, I know they gave him, they kind of interested in him. Ty Davis Price, they give a lot of coin to him. Gainwell's in the final year of his rookie deal.
Mhm.
We'll talk more about their roles as we learn more on future shows. And that's it. I mean, I love that you threw that out there because I hadn't thought about that, but it could look. There's nothing in free agency at outside corner. There are technically, yes, there are guys out there, but starters out there other than Fuller of Washington. Good luck to you if you're looking for an outside corner.
There's a reason James Bradbury is still on the Philadelphia Eagles. That's exactly why. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.